Hello again. Uh, Thank you all for watching that wonderful film. We're now bringing up our panelists here. We have Dr. Liz Tyson, Programs Director for Born Free USA, Devan Schowe, Programs Associate at Born Free, who you also saw in the film. Both Liz and Devan were on camera there. And the director filmmaker, Jack, I'm gonna slaughter your last name again, Jack Wootton. So thank you all for joining us. And we're gonna dive into some questions that we have. Jack, I'd like to start with you. I think it'd be interesting to maybe hear just briefly about your experience at the sanctuary and making this film and kind of what your vision was for it.
Yeah, so well, I think the vision probably all came from Devan and Liz explaining sort of what a day in the life is at the sanctuary and how it functions and how it works, and that immediately just grabbed my attention. And then when I arrived there, I think I was just overwhelmed by the fact that people were devoting not only their working life, but every aspect of their life, their social life, where they lived. It influenced everything that was them. And I think that was what drove me to try and put as much as I possibly could into this, because there was so much devotion once you got to that sanctuary. It was amazing to see, absolutely incredible. And even though everything was extremely heartbreaking to see in the stories that you hear, I think being surrounded by people who were so devoted to make a difference to these animals' lives, I think that's the essence of what the film was supposed to be. And then from a filmmaker point of view, I just wanted to do it in a way that was repeatable by everyone. So all of the equipment I used is all secondhand. It's as cheap as you can get it. Everyone could replicate something like this, and everything is self-taught, from YouTube videos of how to edit things to friends and family teaching me how to hold a camera correctly and everything. So it really is something that everyone can do. And yeah, that was sort of from the start. It was something that had to be repeatable and could be repeatable by everyone. But the story was really run and really led by all the team at Born Free, definitely.
Thank you. Liz, would you like to kind of add anything or make any just kind of initial comments?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jack, for your very kind words about our team, and thank you so much for producing this brilliant film. It means a lot to us, and I think it's a really powerful tool. So when Jack and I first started talking about it, really what we wanted to do is to keep pressure for the passage of the Captive Primate Safety Act. I think somebody in the questions has asked about whether or not there's legislation similar to the Big Cat Public Safety Act, and there is. In fact, it is almost a carbon copy of the Big Cat Public Safety Act. It uses the exact same legal mechanism, and the idea for the Captive Primate Safety Act would be to ban private ownership of primates and interstate trade in primates and some public interactions with them across the United States. So that is really what we wanted to shine a light on. And the lobbying process is long and arduous, and the more that we can put out there to tell these stories, and I think they are important stories to tell, not just of the individual monkeys, but also of the people working to care for them, then we hope that that will act as an excellent resource to encourage lawmakers to make that change in the law that I hope the film has proved is so desperately needed.
That's great. Devan, I know you're familiar with the Captive Primate Safety Act, and as well as many other pieces of legislation that we're working on. Would you like to explain just a little bit more about that bill and the importance of a sweeping federal legislation like this?
Sure, yeah. So as the legislation currently stands, as we said in the film, it's really just a patchwork of inconsistent regulation throughout the country. So 21 states actually ban the ownership of most primate species, but 19 require a permit or have a ban on some species, but not all. And then 9 states have no requirements or legislation regarding primates whatsoever. So that's what we really want to change. It makes enforcing everything across the country consistently and efficiently almost impossible with that type of legislation. So the Captive Primate Safety Act would ban ownership and public interaction with most primate species on a federal level, meaning that it's no longer allowed. So that would be so important in streamlining, you know, all the issues we have with the trade, all the issues with the welfare of these animals, all the issues that arise in the wild for the conservation of these species, which is really suffering from the private trade of these primates. Not to mention the huge public safety risks surrounding owning primates. You know, having a primate that's unregistered if they're living in your house and your neighbors don't know about that and they escape, that's really dangerous for the owner and also the entire community. And it also puts the first responders at huge risk as well for injury, sometimes even death. So I think a quote from Tim Harrison, who was the retired first responder in our documentary, he commented that 90% of escaped animals are killed as a response. So we're really just trying to protect the animals and protect the people with passing this legislation.
Thanks, Devin. And I think we have in the story of one of our newest residents, Willis, the most adorable, joyful little vervet monkey I think you'll ever meet. And you could tell how much Liz likes him. I think it's a really good demonstration of how this kind of patchwork of state by state doesn't work. You know, Willis was found in Chicago, which does not allow the private possession of primates. And while we had a few stories of really where he came from and how that Chicago person came to have him, really what we believe, the truth of it was that he was transported from Indiana. Just, you know, and those of you who aren't familiar with Chicago, the city border pretty much runs up to the border with our neighboring state where the primate pet trade is allowed. So it's so easy just to drive maybe 30 minutes, buy a monkey, bring him back home, and until something happens, until someone gets hurt or he escapes, you may not know that, you know, the apartment next door to you or the house around the corner has a potentially dangerous wild animal. Liz, would you like to add anything to that, or just say something really sweet about Willis, because we all love him?
We do all really love Willis. I think I want to speak quickly in relation to that. Eric Bear, who's actually one of our honorary council members, has asked about sanctions with the proposed law, and kind of, you know, so what happens if people break the ban? And I think Willis's case is really important in this because obviously they were holding him in Chicago illegally, but they obtained him, the likelihood is, legally. And I think for us, sanctions are somewhat important, but generally speaking, if you ban something, the vast majority of people will comply. What we're trying to work against is the patchwork of the law that makes it very difficult to understand and very difficult to enforce at all. Our concern is getting animals out of dangerous places and unsafe places and neglectful places and traumatic places. And that was where Willis was. So I think for us, in answer to your question, Eric, about sanctions, do you think they go far enough? We want to see what happens when place, because generally speaking, if we get that sweeping ban, most people by choice will comply with it. There will be some people who try to circumvent it, but we're not expecting a huge black market in primates. That's not the direction that this would go in. People think it's okay because it's legal right now, and I think banning it would send a very clear message that it's not. And just to say, Willis is now integrated fully into our little social group of rascals. We have two very naughty young monkeys called Mikey and Teddy, and he has become 3. So they're the 3 musketeers. Willis is now growing and just becoming more of a monkey. He was very human oriented when he arrived. He really wanted to hang out with us and get attention from us, and now he could not care less because he is one of the gang. So it's been just so wonderful watching him grow and learn to be a monkey for the first time, and that's the opportunity we try to offer as many monkeys as we can.
Thanks, Liz. We have a question here about using monkeys as service animals. Someone has asked about a group that trains Capuchins, which many of you may recognize them. That was the little black and white that was Ross's pet on the show Friends many years ago. I've just dated myself a little bit. But they're training Capuchin monkeys to assist people with physical differences. And the question is, in your opinion, are Capuchin monkeys so dangerous that they could not be used as service animals? Liz?
I can give you a very simple answer to that question. And I worked with Capuchin monkeys in both Colombia, in South America, and also in the UK in a rescue situation. And I can tell you for a fact that yes, they are very dangerous animals. I met a man who was looking to rehome his Capuchin monkeys to us because he was literally missing this finger because one of his pet Capuchins turned on him and bit it clean off. These animals are not safe. What will often happen to try and make them safer to handle is to remove their canines, which is a surgical procedure. It's very cruel to them. It not only has physical implications, it also has social implications for them because their canines are an important part of their status in their group. But Capuchins are as dangerous as any monkey. And in fact, I would say of the monkeys I've worked with, some of the more dangerous monkeys. I think maybe Devan can speak a little bit to why we believe they're not, because of these representations that we see in the media, because I know you've been doing some work on that, if you're comfortable answering that.
Yeah, definitely. So in social media and online, we see a lot of representations of infant primates in bad situations where they're young and without their mothers, or they're in an unnatural environment, or having unnatural, unsafe interactions with people. And oftentimes, the more people see these representations of these animals online, the more normalized it becomes, and therefore the more sort of tame and safe that people will view these animals as. And that's particularly very dangerous, especially in the case of service animals, because if you have an unpredictable, aggressive, not trainable animal at all, they're not able to be tamed, they're not domesticated animals, they're still wild animals. Even if they were technically born in captivity, they still retain all of their wild instincts. So you're putting a wildly unpredictable, aggressive animal with someone who may be more vulnerable to it than other people. So it's really harmful, pretty much from any angle you look at it. And what we have in trending social media right now is honestly just adding to that. So that's another thing that hopefully the Captive Primate Safety Act would help us achieve, is that the representation, these harmful representations of these animals that are so prevalent in our culture now, will be decreased as well as a result, if the ban were to come.
Yes, I know. I recall many years ago seeing photos from a primate picnic, and the type of thing where people who have pet primates gather together, you know, in a city park or something. And the photos include monkeys in tutus, wearing bonnets, in prams, you know, on leashes. I think we even saw in a couple of the stories in the film, you know, animals on leashes or monkeys on leashes. And it's really important that just to know that they are adorable. And Devan, like you were just saying, that all those videos of, you know, you could go down a rabbit hole of watching people give baby monkeys a bath, you know, and it's just, it's entirely different than, you know, the videos of giving your new puppy a bath. You know, cats and dogs have been domesticated over millennia. Primates, as you just said, even born in captivity, are not domesticated, even after, you know, say a couple of generations or a few generations. Great. Let's see, I'm checking here. Let's see. We have somebody who's commented that you can find horrible videos of infant monkeys being tortured. Yes, that's another really horrifying trend on social media. Would anyone like to address that, whether with monkeys or others? Liz?
Sure, and this is something that, again, Devan might be able to add to as well, that stemming off from social media as a way to kind of document your own life personally, what that has now grown into is this extremely lucrative business. Sorry, a cat just walked out from under my car outside and completely distracted me. Sorry about that. And so, yeah, social media has become this form of entertainment in itself, and knowing that this money can be made from this, and basically money can be made from views. More views equals more money for the people who are using it for income. Then they have been coming up with these kind of false rescues, these false attacks, animal attacks, where they will very deliberately set one animal on another. So it's, this is stuff that we banned, sometimes hundreds of years ago. There were laws to ban like bear baiting in the United Kingdom, in the first animal laws that there were. And this is stuff that we do not allow here in the US. And yet, because of the internet, you can see it all over the world within seconds. So there are very deliberate videos of animals being tortured. There are very deliberate videos where animals are being put in unsafe environments so that a rescue can be staged. And again, this is just feeding into this growing kind of social media machine, which can be used for good. We're all here on the internet sharing this really positive work and this really positive messaging, but there's got to be a way to curb that in the opposite direction, where people are not just documenting harm to animals, but actually staging it. Devan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Devan, did you want to add something, or?
Sorry, no, I forgot I was muted. Liz explained that beautifully.
Jack, somebody asked us where the sanctuary is located, and we did respond that it's in South Texas, but maybe you'd like to just talk a little bit about kind of what you saw at the sanctuary, and try to give folks a kind of broader picture of what it's like there. I mean, certainly we saw footage, a lot of close-up, really wonderful, like looking into the animal's eyes, but not panning back out to the sanctuary in general.
Yeah, so I don't think it was anything at all like I expected it was going to be. But upon arriving, you sort of find that there's different categories that all these animals fit into, and it might be ones that have just arrived, and there's very much testing the water to see the temperaments, how they could be integrated into a wider social group if they need extra care, whether that be medical or just attention on what it is that is potentially wrong with them, or what potentially they need help with. And then there's, like I said, the sort of wider enclosures, the larger ones where the social groups are. And it is absolutely incredible to see what's actually at the sanctuary. There's an enclosure called Maine, which is probably going to stay with me for the rest of my life. And I was wandering through Maine, just getting some footage on the first day, and it's like this huge enclosure. When you're stood in the middle, you can't see the sides, you can't see any fences, and you're surrounded by sort of scrub, just like bits of forest all around you. It has large sort of lakes in it, like very, very large ponds, and it is just the most incredible thing to witness. You think you're somewhere else. I wouldn't have placed myself in Texas there, surrounded by monkeys from all over the place, but it was absolutely incredible to see. And it was they're not in the wild. It's definitely still a sanctuary. It can't mimic the wild in any perfect setting, but that's as good as it could possibly get. The care there and the attention to detail. There was members of staff who knew every single monkey, every single primate by name. And I can't even name my friends by name half the time. It was absolutely incredible. The attention to detail is something else. And there were some horrible cases where monkeys weren't able to be integrated into these social situations. So they did have to live a solitary life, and the best care and attention was given then as well. But it's heartbreaking to see even just a comparison between what they could have in that setting and what they have to live through because of the trauma that they've faced in their life. But it really was an incredible experience, and being able to put this in some visual format so people can see that, even if it's just grasping a small element of what that was and what I experienced over there, is of massive joy to me that I've been able to do anything even close to that. So I can't sort of commend you guys and the guys at Sanctuary for the work that they do. It's truly incredible. So yeah, everyone should donate to you or do something if they can. I wasn't paid to say that either. So
Oh, thank you, Jack. I think we're kind of starting to wind down with questions. So if anybody has anything, that they would like to ask, please go ahead and drop it in. Otherwise, I'm just going to ask if anyone would like to give some kind of final thoughts, maybe I guess we should talk about what can the people watching do to help us?
Sure. I think first, and just to quickly pick up on something Jack said, it is still a sanctuary and it can't mimic the wild. I think that's one thing which I think we've reiterated in different ways in both in the film and also in what we've been saying. Some people ask us, well, if we have, if I can't have a pet, then, what's the difference between you guys having the animals in a sanctuary and me having a pet if I really look after them in my own home? And the answer is, standards, there's a spectrum, and we give, this amazing vet care and this amazing attention. We have a full staff, we have all of this, infrastructure around it, but ultimately not a great deal of difference. The animals are still in captivity. And so we don't think our sanctuary should be there any more than we think animals should be kept in homes. We have to be there because we have to provide and do what we can for the victims of the trade. But we're in this strange business that we want to put ourselves out of business. And I think anybody who works in an animal sanctuary will say the same thing, because we want to get rid of these forms of exploitation that force these animals into this situation in the first place. So we will continue to do the best we can for the animals under our care, but we don't want to be here any more than we want people to have primates as pets. So I'll pass over to Devan, because I know this film was, she wrote most of it. This is very much hers and Jack's work. So I will leave it to Devan to talk about what the next steps are and how people can help.
Definitely, yeah, thank you. So it is probably the most important step, I think, to speak out to your local lawmaker and voice your support for the Captive Primate Safety Act. It was just introduced to Congress last May of 2021. It still needs to be passed by the Senate, passed by the House, before it can be signed into law. And the more support that it gets, the more support, especially from community members, addressing the public safety concerns, addressing things that directly affect the community, in addition to the welfare of these animals, in addition to it harming the conservation of the species in the wild. Those are all things that lawmakers need to hear, that they're not necessarily hearing in the environment that they're in. So speaking out to your local lawmaker is always really important to do. Sharing any of our resources, sharing this documentary whenever we can release it, sharing the report that this video was based off of. We launched this past October. That would be extremely helpful. Going to our website and looking under the Sanctuary tab, you can actually adopt one of our primates, symbolically, obviously, but you get kind of like a package along with the adoption and your financial contribution that all goes directly towards helping our monkeys at the sanctuary, helping provide them with really individualized care, giving them their favorite treats, whatever it is. And also finally, I would say making sure your social media presence is good and responsible, and you're paying attention to what you're even just viewing, even if you're not necessarily sharing something or actively promoting something. Even just viewing a video, adding to that view count of a harmful video of a primate will add to that harmful cycle that we want to start stopping, that we want to stop. So yeah, that's all very important. And as always, don't go to any venues that offer, experiences with primates, where you can have a photo op, where you can interact with them directly, that anything that seems like it's not in the best interest of a primate, that's definitely not a safe thing to do. So those would be my suggestions.
Devan, what about, speaking of social media and the power for good that it can have, how would, let's say one of your friends shares one of these videos and, and maybe like harmlessly, they're thinking it's harmless, but this is just so cute. Here's your happy Friday video. And they think they're just sharing something really sweet people are going to watch. Without, obviously we don't want to start some Twitter wars, but, but how would somebody maybe address that? Because I think educating the people around us, not just simply ignoring it, swiping it away, but actually engaging with that person so they understand why that is harmful.
Yeah, definitely. That's important to do, I think. I do that a lot, actually, with my close friends, because, they know I used to work at the Primate Sanctuary, and they're like, oh, wow, look at this adorable monkey getting makeup put on. And I'm like, okay. So I think first it's important to understand, like, I do understand why you think this is really cute. I understand why you sent it to me as the fellow animal lover, like, acknowledge why they are sending it to you. But then definitely address, this video is actually harmful to animals. And as an animal lover, I think you should know that sharing this type of content is actually doing the animals more harm than good. And, kind of list the reasons directly pertaining to that content. So whether it's they're a pet, so they're, not living a very fulfilling life, whatever the situation may be, addressing that and telling them, if you're promoting this type of content, it's harming the animals ultimately, and it's best to stop promoting that type of content.
Thank you, Devan. All right. Well, I want to again thank everyone for joining us. And we really appreciate your watching the film with us today and engaging in this conversation. If you have any other questions, if we missed anyone, feel free to email us at info@bornfreeusa.org. We'll be happy to, keep talking to folks who are interested in this issue and want to help us. And of course, we always appreciate your support in these actions that you can take by contacting your legislatures, spreading the word, really helping. And Liz would like to add something. So I will pause for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was after you'd finished. I just wanted to highlight as well that young Freeman, who you saw in the film there, can be adopted. And so he is someone who you can become part of his family in the most positive way. So if you head over to the link there that Karen just put up for us and check him out, then he's new to our adoption family, so you can be one of the first to adopt him.
Thank you
for this opportunity.
Perfect. Well, wonderful. Thank you to Jack and Devan and Liz and Karen, who has been running this behind the scenes, and to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we appreciate all of your support. Thank you.